Welcome to this explainer. Today, we are diving into the incredibly strange, almost unbelievable anomalies of the world's fourth longest river. The Lena River is an absolute giant for sure, but honestly, its massive size is literally the least interesting thing about it.
To really wrap our heads around the scale of this mystery, imagine a territory roughly the size of Western Europe. That is the massive, incredibly remote part of Siberia the Lena River flows through. Because it's so ridiculously hard to access, it remains largely unexplored, and it's out there, actively hiding secrets that completely defy modern science.
So we're going to break down 11 distinct, fully documented mysteries about this river ecosystem. We'll be moving from some bizarre geological formations and completely impossible biological finds, all the way down to terrifying deep water acoustic pulses. It is a wild journey, so let's jump right in.
Part 1. A River of Secrets. Unmapped Anomalies.
You know, it's pretty wild to think that in our modern era, a river of this magnitude routinely baffles our best technology. On average, the river is a relatively shallow 10 to 15 meters deep, but then, between the Aldan and Vilju tributaries, there are these sudden anomalous craters plunging 60 to 70 meters straight down. When fishermen and scientists pass over these sections, their echo sounders completely malfunction. You'll literally have independent instruments simultaneously showing completely different readings that match neither the actual bottom relief nor any known biological activity. It's like a technological Bermuda Triangle right in the water.
But here is where it gets fascinating. Where modern instruments fail, ancient populations actually thrived. The indigenous Evenki people preserved the exact layout of this unmapped chaos purely through their oral language. They encoded depths, currents, and bottom characteristics right into their place names. Absolutely no written language required. And the real mind-blowing part? Modern geomorphologists have confirmed that these ancient stories perfectly describe paleochannels, essentially ancient, abandoned riverbeds left behind thousands of years ago.
Part 2. Stones and Frozen Time. Impossible Geology.
Moving up onto the riverbanks, we run into geological impossibilities that early Russian explorers actually mistook for ancient fortress walls. Take the Lena Pillars, rising 100 meters into the sky. Standard science tells us these are 500-million-year-old limestone formations created by weathering. But wait, look closely at the geometry here. The vertical cracks deviate from true vertical by only 2 to 3 degrees. This creates an almost perfectly uniform rectangular grid, stretching for a staggering 40 kilometers. I mean, for a random, natural geological process, having that level of immense regularity is statistically highly improbable.
And the biological contradiction buried at the base of these pillars is even stranger. This is one of the few places on Earth where you can just pick up perfectly preserved half-a-billion-year-old Cambrian organisms, like trilobites. But here's the catch. The ecosystem data makes absolutely zero sense. Entire species that are clearly present in one specific rock layer are completely missing from the very next one, and there is zero evolutionary or geological explanation for it. They just vanish. Adding to all this historical confusion, ancient inhabitants left thousands of continuous rock carvings, petroglyphs, along these cliffs. But as researchers look at the deepest, oldest layers dating back around 12,000 to 15,000 years, they hit a wall. These early carvings depict geometric shapes and animals with anatomical features that science simply cannot identify. Plus, creating these specific deep carvings required tools made from a material harder than granite, and we have absolutely no idea what kind of material the populations of the Lena River could have possibly possessed 12,000 years ago to do that.
Part 3. The Cursed Vilju Valley. The Evenki Legend.
Now, let's head over to the largest tributary, the Vilju. This is an area the Evenki literally call the Cursed Valley. Geologically, it's scarred by ancient magma explosions from 200 kilometers deep. But fast forward to the 19th century, local Yakut hunters started reporting something totally bizarre. They found strange, metallic, dome-shaped objects, half buried in the permafrost, which were mysteriously warm enough to shelter inside during the freezing Siberian winters. Soviet expeditions in the 1930s and 50s desperately tried to locate them, thinking they might be unique kimberlite structures, but they completely failed. To this day, they remain unidentified, sitting right alongside some really bizarre magnetic and thermal anomalies in the region.
Part 4. Secrets Beneath the Surface. Ecosystem Anomalies.
The deeper we look into the Lena's ecosystem, the more the standard scientific models just completely fall apart. Every summer, melting permafrost drops perfectly preserved Ice Age animals right onto the riverbanks. But the anomaly is their distribution. They're found in these massive, concentrated gathering sites, which suggests they were drawn to specific, unknown locations right before dying. And the absolute climax of this mystery? In 2013, researchers found a 40,000-year-old female mammoth in the Lena Delta. Inside her cavity was dark liquid blood. Even at -10 degrees Celsius, it wouldn't freeze. This points to a totally unexplainable, natural biochemical antifreeze that researchers are still scratching their heads over today.
Okay, to really understand our next mystery about the river's actual water flow, we need to learn a quick term: talic. These are unfrozen, completely unmapped aquifers sitting deep beneath the permafrost. And they are absolutely crucial, because the Lena River's water balance math, it makes no sense.
Hydrologists are observing a practically impossible cycle here. During the dry summer, several small tributaries completely dry up to zero flow. But then, in autumn, they refill incredibly fast, way faster than regional rainfall can actually account for. Water basically vanishes and reappears like magic. The only working hypothesis right now is that unmapped talics are capturing and redistributing the water underground. That means a huge portion of the world's fourth longest river is actually flowing through an invisible, completely unmeasured subterranean system.
And biologically, the river just continues to stump us. Consider the Lena omul, a fish that is genetically completely isolated from other Siberian populations. Every year to spawn, it travels an absolutely staggering 1,500 to 1,700 kilometers upriver. How it navigates this exact immense distance to specific spawning grounds, whether it's using magnetic sensitivity or some kind of chemical memory, is a total unknown. And strangely enough, in recent years, local fishermen are noting that the omul's migration times are inexplicably shifting weeks earlier than usual.
Speaking of changing migrations, down at the river's massive delta, which is this 32,000 square kilometer labyrinth of shifting islands, things are getting pretty volatile. In 2020, satellite observations captured several shallow water zones intensely bubbling. The water was literally boiling with immense methane gas emissions from the thawing permafrost below. This anomaly is actually so disruptive that ornithologists have noted millions of migrating birds suddenly changing their ancient flight paths just to actively avoid these specific bubbling zones.
Part 5. 4-minute acoustic pulse. Acoustic mysteries.
All right, now we reach the absolute deepest mystery recorded, taking us out to the exact transitional zone where the immense freshwater of the Lena violently meets the salty Arctic Ocean. In 2019, a joint Russian-German hydrological expedition dropped some hydrophones onto the riverbed to study the acoustic ecosystem. Well, on the third day, the instruments picked up something that shouldn't exist. It was an incredibly rhythmic, low-frequency infrasound pulse hitting exactly every 4 minutes. And the craziest part of all this, the signal wasn't coming from the water. It was echoing from deep under the rocky riverbed itself. It pulsed continuously for exactly 11 days, and then just went entirely silent.
The researchers systematically crossed out every logical explanation. They checked the data and confirmed there was absolutely no seismic activity, no industrial operations within 200 kilometers, no known freshwater biological organisms capable of producing that frequency. Even the acoustic profile of deep water gas emissions did not match the signal they were hearing. And over those 11 days, there were zero changes in water chemistry or temperature to explain it.
So what was the scientific consensus after all that? Well, in 2021, when the expedition's findings were finally published in a highly specialized hydrological journal, the researchers didn't offer a neat solution or some comforting theory. Instead, under the conclusions section regarding the pulse, they left the entire scientific community with just this hauntingly brief phrase: requires further study. Which brings us to the ultimate question. We've looked at perfectly preserved impossible rock grids, ancient magma pipes, liquid mammoth blood, and unexplained rhythmic pulses echoing from beneath the bedrock. With thousands of unmapped miles and ancient waters driven by invisible subterranean forces, you really have to ask yourself, what other massive anomalies are sleeping beneath the ice out there, just waiting to be found? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep asking questions, and I'll see you next time.